Okay, let's talk tents. There are basically two categories of tents. I don't want to say two types of tents because there's one category, well, both categories include multiple types. Basically, the two categories are pop-up tents and more substantial commercial tents. Now, I am not talking about camping tents, okay? If you want to know about camping tents, I'm sorry, this is not the video for that. I really don't know anything about those other than the one that I used to have when I went camping all the time. But in the event and party rental world, there are two types of tents. There are pop-up tents and there are the more commercial grade things that you use for weddings, corporate events, parking lot sales for retailers, that kind of thing. And those are expensive and hard to get into, and they include several different types of tents. They include things that are called pole tents that do not have frames. It's just poles on the sides and a couple of really big poles in the center. And the structure of the tent is the top itself, and you strapping it down and putting tension on it. There's a little more complicated to do. Another type that's more complicated to do is called frame tents. And they've got lots of poles. They've got these complicated structures that you have to put together that hold them up. The tops come in sections. There's a lot to them. And then the easiest type to get into is the type that I use right now, although I will be getting into the others later. They're called high peak frame tents. Some people call them marquee tents. Some of the really old guys in this industry, I understand, call them cross cable tents because what holds the center pole up is two cables that are crossing, make an X on the frame, and that holds the center pole up. Now, I got into the marquee tents because they're pretty easy to do. But you kind of have to learn how to do tents. And honestly, I actually went to a tent school that was put on by a manufacturer of rental industry grade tents. The school is called Top Tech. I actually flew to North Carolina and went to the tent school and that kind of thing, and I learned how to do all three of those types of tents. I could do all of them, but I'm only doing the marquee tents right now because that's what I can afford, that's what I have the employees to do, and that is what I have the comfort level with because there's a lot of wind where I live, and wind really affects tents. And also price, what you can get into them for. So if you want to get into the bigger tents, the commercial grade, the event rental grade tents, I suggest starting with marquees. I currently have two 20 by 20s and a 20 by 30. The next one I buy will either be another 20 by 30 or maybe even a 20 by 40. And I probably will get to where I have 3 or 4 of each of those before I get into any of the other types of tents. Except for the other completely different group of tents, which is the pop-ups. Now, a lot of rental people will tell you you can't do pop-ups. They break, they're a pain, you don't want to mess with them. But the problem is, I've seen enough people who are in the rental industry, who are renting them, and who are making some good money with them. And there's two schools of thought. One is you buy really, really cheap ones and you rent them out, and when they get broken, you throw them away. Or you charge the customer for the replacement. I'm not a big fan of that because I don't like my equipment getting broke all the time, and I am not a big fan of charging customers for them because that just makes your customers angry and they leave you bad reviews. So, what did I buy? Well, I bought things that are called commercial grade pop-up tents. Now, they are not commercial grade in the sense that they are not the same as the other tents that I was describing before that are made for the rental industry. But they're much more heavy duty than what you would find at Walmart or your local sporting goods store or Target or whatever. They have hexagon shaped legs. If they do get damaged, all the pieces are screwed together instead of riveted together so that you can replace pieces, and you can buy replacement pieces for them. You can buy replacement tops. You can repair these things, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And you can rent these out. You can deliver and set up for the customer if they wish, or they're the type of tent that people can pick up. So the question is, which should you get into? And the answer is really going to be dependent on your business, what your needs are, how much money you have, how much experience you have, that kind of thing. I went to the tent school so I could learn how to do the bigger tents because I was really nervous about it, because I know that you can have a tent that's worth several $1,000s get destroyed if it's not installed properly. You can have people get hurt or killed. You can have brides' weddings ruined and people wanting to sue you and that kind of thing. So I went to the tent school and I got into the bigger tents. But at the same time, just about the same time that I was making my reservations to go to the tent school, I also was buying some of the pop-up tents. And my feeling is both. But if you don't have a lot of money and you just want to get into tents for your small event rental, party rental company, then by all means start with the pop-up tents. I'm going to give you two brands that are really good quality and that I would recommend. Euramax, EURMAX, is really good, really heavy duty, got great reviews, has the hexagon legs, has the replaceable parts, and is recommended by Adam, the tent guy, and they're really good. They're not the brand that I have, okay? I have a brand called ABC, ABC Canopy Company. They're about equivalent to Euramax. They have the hexagon legs, they have the frames with the replaceable parts. You can, for about $150, replace the top on them. You can get them in 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 sizes. I have two of each. I have those in both two of each so that I can put them together. I can put the two 10 by 20s together and make a 20 by 20, which is the same size as my smallest of the bigger tents. You do have to do things like make sure you are either using really heavy sandbags. I use 60-pound sandbags and they're a pain to carry around, or do a really good job of staking them. And that's going to kind of depend on the surface you're setting them up. Obviously, if they're on concrete or asphalt, you are not going to stake them. Make sure your stakes are long enough. Make sure the wind conditions, that any of these pop-ups, even these commercial grade ones, are not going to handle the wind conditions that the bigger commercial grade tents are going to handle. So you have to know about what your wind ratings are for your tents, what they'll take, what they don't. I actually do have two 10 by 10 pop-up tents that are not They're one step up above what you would buy at Walmart or your local sporting goods store, but they're not quite the commercial grade ones either. They've got square tubes, but they are still the kind where you can buy pieces. They're not riveted together. You can buy replacements, that kind of thing. I have those to rent out as well, and those are strictly customer pickup only. I don't deliver those unless I'm already delivering, like, you know, a bunch of tables and chairs for your events, that kind of thing. Those are a good customer pickup item. So basically that's the difference between the two types of tents. And like I said, if you have the budget, I recommend doing both. A lot of tent people say don't do the pop-ups, and that's fine. And then there are people that will say, you know, just do the pop-ups and don't mess with the big ones. I'm going to be the guy that splits the difference and says, yes, do both. And I think a lot of the YouTubers that do rentals are going to say the same thing. Adam the Tent Guy has originally was against pop-ups. He's now doing them. He uses Eurmax. Lee, the rental guy, does pop-up tents as well. That's what he started with. That's one of the first things he bought and how he started his rental business. Lee's friend in Canada, a guy named Les, does both as well, and he has tons of those things. So you can do both. And if you're a small rental company and you can't afford to do both, then start up with some pop-ups. If you can buy the better commercial grade pop-ups from Eurmax or ABC, great. If all you can afford is the $180 tent from Walmart, start with that. Anyway, I guess that's about it for this video. Remember, it's always a good time to have a party.